Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Today is February 15th, 2024. This is our 183rd episode. My name is Andy Zee. I'm a host of the show, and I'm here today with Annie Day, a regular contributor to the RNL show.
I'm very glad to be here. This show is about a real revolution to overthrow this whole system and bring a radically different and far better world into being. And we base ourselves on the new communism developed by the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, who's brought forward a strategy to make that revolution.
And Annie, we want to get right into the show today and right into organizing and preparing people now for a real revolution. And a key part of the strategy for making revolution, the preparation for it, requires waging fierce struggle to break people out of all the bullshit ways of thinking and acting that they're caught up in and winning them to become emancipators of humanity. And Bob Avakian wrote an article this past summer titled State of Emergency: Chains on the People Who Desperately Need to Be Free. And the staff of the RNL show illustrated this. So watch this.
State of Emergency: Chains on People Who Desperately Need to Be Free. A message from Bob Avakian, revolutionary leader, author and architect of a whole new framework for human emancipation, the new communism. State of emergency. State of emergency. Masses of people are demoralized and disoriented, robbed of real hope, chasing after deadly illusions, desperately clinging to things that are not real, indulging in trivial pursuits while stubbornly refusing to face the biggest reality, striving to turn degradation into capital, bitterly divided and beefing over bullshit, trying to make a mark by mocking and even murdering each other. Chain, chain, chain. Chain of foolishness. Today, so many are caught up in the 3M and P. What is the 3M and P? Me, me, me. Money, money, money. Misogyny and patriarchy. All ways of thinking and acting that reflect and reinforce this system of capitalism, imperialism that so viciously oppresses people here and all over the world. All constantly promoted and pumped out in the popular culture.
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
Including in hip-hop. How this came to dominate hip-hop, and how it has actually perverted this creative art form.
All I really wanna see is the money. I don't really need a D, I need the money.
Which could be and should be a powerful voice for liberation.
Fight the power. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now.
That is another story, which has everything to do with how things are ultimately controlled by the ruling powers that dominate overall in this sick system of capitalism, imperialism. These are real chains on people, especially those most terribly, murderously oppressed under this system. Misogyny, hating women, and subjecting them to degradation in countless ways. Patriarchy.
But females are barely sentient. Females don't have independent thought. They don't come up with anything. They're just empty vessels.
Relations in which men are regarded as superior to women and hold power over them, while LGBT people are treated as illegitimate and objects of hatred, abuse, and scorn. Then there is the BEB. What is BEB? bourgeois electoral bullshit. The ridiculous idea that you change this system that viciously preys on you, and millions and billions of people like you in this country and all over the world, by voting for this group or that group of bourgeois capitalist vultures. And what is another big chain on people? Supposedly easing, but really perpetuating the pain of feeling hopeless and powerless to put an end to the suffering that so many are afflicted by today. Religion. What is religion? Organized promotion of the belief that things have been created and are controlled by one or another God, which in reality does not exist and has been invented by people, with so many taught to believe that if things are the way they are, it is the will of this supposed God.
You don't know what God is making while you're aching. You don't know what God is making while you're suffering. You can't always see what the Master's doing. Only when we look back, then we see that God had a plan.
As I have written before, while upholding people's right to religion and uniting with religious people who take positive stands in the fight against oppression, it is crucially important to consistently and resolutely struggle for a scientific, not a religious, method and approach to reality, and wage a fierce, relentless fight against anti-scientific poison spread among the masses of people in the name of religion. Learn to live in chains, bow down to those enforcing the chains, boast about and sing praises to the chains, or break all the chains. That is the choice. I know some people don't like it when I say all this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because as a revolutionary dedicated to the emancipation of humanity from every chain that holds people down, I recognize the responsibility to tell people the truth, even if it offends some at first. And all you who also know this is true, you need to say it too. Say it loud. It is time, and long past time, to break these mental chains, to get in position to break all the chains of the modern-day slavery of this system of capitalism imperialism. It is time to take up the scientific outlook, method, strategy and program, morality and values that can lead people to finally get free, the new communism. It is time to become revolutionary emancipators of humanity. Hard truth, liberating truth.
I'm here with Noche Diaz, a regular contributor to the RNL, Revolution Nothing Less show. Welcome, Noche.
Good to be here, Andy.
All right. Earlier this week, we went out and with some of the Revcoms to a college campus and recorded you reading the statement for the new REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. I think we should play it and then let's talk about it a bit.
Okay.
All right.
I'm Noche Diaz. We are announcing the formation of the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. We are working for a real revolution and a whole new emancipating way to live. To everyone who can't stand this world the way it is, who is sick and tired of so many people being treated as less than human. Everyone who hungers for a world without oppression, exploitation, poverty, and destruction of the environment. Everyone who has the heart to fight for something that is really worth fighting for. You need to be part of this revolution. Stop the genocidal persecution, mass incarceration, police brutality, and murder of black and brown people. Stop the patriarchal degradation, dehumanization, and subjugation of all women everywhere, and all oppression based on gender or sexual orientation. Stop the wars for empire, the armies of occupation, and crimes against humanity. Stop the dehumanization, criminalization, and deportation of immigrants and the militarization of the border. Stop capitalism, imperialism from destroying our planet. This system of capitalism, imperialism, is the source of all the outrages and madness that people are subjected to here and around the world, and it is long past time it be swept off the face of the earth. Revolution is even more possible in the time we live in now, because those who have ruled over us in this country are deeply divided in a way they have not been since the Civil War of the 1860s. While society is ripping apart in ways that can no longer be covered over or held together, we face two futures: something terrible or something truly emancipating. And which future we get depends to a great extent on what we do. To seize this time, throughout society and with eyes on the whole country, we are organizing the REVCOM CORPS for the emancipation of humanity. We are united around two principles. One, humanity needs revolution and the new communism brought forward by Bob Avakian. And two, fight the power and transform the people for revolution. We are living by, spreading and fighting for the points of attention of the revolution. Revolution is not some small change that leaves the system in place or in power. Revolution, real revolution, means defeating the violent enforcers of this monstrous system, abolishing this system with all its oppressive institutions and its governing U.S. Constitution, and establishing a far better system based on the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America, written by Bob Avakian, which would bring into being a society and ultimately a world free from all forms of slavery, all exploitation and oppression based on class, race, sex, and gender, all relations in which one part of humanity is subordinated and dominated by another. Communism, the new communism, has been brought forward by Bob Avakian, a completely different leader who is heart and soul hardcore serious about a revolution where people can get all the way free. He has further developed and applied communism as a scientific understanding of the need and possibility for this truly emancipating revolution. When you join the REVCOM CORPS, you will be working to spread this revolution while you are learning. You will learn to work together with people just like you and people who are nothing like you, but that they share the common cause of getting humanity free. You get the training and the grounding and a scientific understanding of what this is all for: the emancipation of humanity and the strategic approach to revolution as you advance as a revolutionary leader. When you join the REVCOM Corps, you can have the powerful impact that you cannot have alone. As part of a growing, organized, disciplined, bold, and fearless force, influencing and attracting thousands more to become fighters for revolution and go on to lead millions to actually make revolution in the time we live in now.
All right, Noche, there's a lot packed into that mission statement for the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. So I think first off, we should get into why did we change the name of the revolution clubs to the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity?
It's an important question, and we're changing the name because we're changing everything about what we're doing and how we're organizing people into the ranks of the revolution now. And if you've been watching this show and paying attention, Bob Avakian has launched a network on social media, speaking directly to people and really fighting for people to recognize the time we live in. the deep divisions in society, the way things are ripping apart, and it's not just a feeling you have. It's actually something different. The way the people in power are fighting each other. This is not going to get covered up and resolved in the way it has been for since the Civil War. He's been saying, and what we are doing to organize people into the revolution has got to be aimed at seizing on the time we live in, to not just someday make a revolution, but to make a revolution in the time we live in now, as it says in that mission statement. And on revcom.us, there's an important document titled Revolution, Building Up the Basis to Go for the Whole Thing with a Real Chance to Win. And that has to set our sights on what we are aiming to do when we are organizing people into the ranks of the revolution. And the REVCOM CORPS, for the Emancipation of Humanity. This name change is also communicating the core principles that need to be at the heart of how we're organizing people, and the fact that this is got to become a growing, organized, disciplined, fearless force that is reaching out to attracting the thousands who can actually lead the millions to make revolution in the time we live in now, and building up that basis to go for the whole thing the way it's outlined in that document.
I think it's important, Noche, that you brought out that what time it is, and that this name change is to be able to meet the challenge of these times. And I know that the Revolution Clubs had meetings to discuss making this name change, and it'd be, I think, really important to hear what was the, put it this way, the esprit de corps, the spirit of the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity, and how people feel are on a mission now to step out in the next couple of weeks with this new name.
Yeah, so it's important, you mentioned we had these meetings around the country, and then as you saw, we had the, video from being out, and actually bringing this announcement to people, because that's part of what this spirit of the Corps is that we're going out, and everyone who's been part of this revolution and people who have not and who are just learning about it now are being brought forward into a serious organization for the emancipation of humanity. When you played earlier on this show, the statement from Bob Avakian, state of emergency, chains on those who desperately need to be free, you can see all the ways this system has people living and thinking in ways that keep them going along with this dog-eat-dog monstrous system. And he's not just calling people out to berate them. You hear the inspiring, thing about it is that he's struggling with people because he knows they can change. And you see that in that statement, but also in his posts on social media on an ongoing way, really fighting with people to be what they are capable of. And this is the challenge. This is the spirit that we're bringing people together around. And so when you get that challenge, you need somewhere to go. You can't just go home and be like, damn, I'm messed up, or everyone else is messed up. You need somewhere you can go where you can, take part in making revolution while you're learning more, where you can, learn how to work together with people who are, nothing like you and people who are maybe similar than you. You need to be able to go somewhere where you get the scientific understanding of what this revolution is all about for the emancipation of humanity, what that really means, what that's aiming for, the society we can bring into being. And you need somewhere where you can have an impact, okay? Everybody knows alone you can't do anything, and you feel it when you go out and you try to, make changes or do some good in the world. It does not measure up to what humanity needs. And the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity is where you can go to actually do what humanity needs, which is revolution and this new communism brought forward by Bob Avakian to fight the power and transform the people for revolution, and to, again, be part of that core now that can become the thousands and lead the millions to make revolution in the time we live in now.
All right. So, Noche, I'm looking forward to this and having you back on the show, and other people from the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity reporting on how this is going. And let's get those thousands of people organized now into this organization.
Let's go.
A monumental horror in Rafah is looming. Rafah is a small city as far south as you can go in the Gaza Strip, right up against the border with Egypt. Once a city of 270,000 people, Rafah is now the last refuge for over 1.4 million Palestinians who fled Israel's massive systematic destruction of northern and central Gaza. 600,000 of those in Rafah are children. And now Israel, having pushed huge numbers of people into this tiny area, is saying they're going to invade and bomb this tightly packed city. Imagine being the parent of young children living in Rafah right now. Your home was destroyed. You've already moved south 5 times. You've been living on the streets for months, and you huddle against the cold and the rain under a plastic covering that you found in the trash. Some days, you manage to get a piece of bread and a bottle of water to share among the family. Other days, nothing. Your kids are constantly hungry and afraid. Now, one has an infection, but the hospitals are overflowing or under attack. You live in constant terror that an Israeli bomb will explode somewhere near, killing or maiming you or your young ones. You're being told Israeli troops are going to attack, and you know what they did in the rest of Gaza, killing and wounding thousands, leveling whole neighborhoods, evacuating people further and further south. You're being told to evacuate again. But where will you go? Nazi, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, promises that civilians will be evacuated to a safe zone. But Israel has bombed everywhere in Gaza, and nowhere is safe. On Sunday night, Israel began bombing Rafah, killing at least 100 people to rescue 2 Israeli hostages. And now they promise an all-out assault. It's possible that Israel's real aim in cramming people so tightly together without food and water is to force them across the border into Egypt. Egypt is taking this seriously and has deployed dozens of tanks along its border with Gaza, signaling to Israel and the Palestinians that they cannot cross. Whatever the exact shape of Israel's next moves, the full-out assault on Rafah promised by Israel would be a major leap, adding horror on top of horror. What is happening with the U.S.-backed Israeli attack on Palestinian people since October 7th, when the reactionary Islamic fundamentalist group Hamas attacked Israel, is Nazi seizing on that attack to attempt a final solution to the Palestinian problem for Israel. And Israel aims, at a minimum, to reduce the Palestinians to such a state that they will no longer pose any problem for Israel, if not literally killing off all the Palestinians. This is truly genocidal. We must do all we can now through mass defiant protest to prevent this screaming atrocity. And those who've come to see that this genocide resides in this system of capitalism imperialism need to be in the midst of these protests, uniting with people and struggling with them to get organized now for an actual revolution to overthrow this system. In the last week, Biden has oh so lightly stepped up his public criticism of Israel, calling what Israel is doing over the top, saying the deaths of innocent Palestinians in Gaza has got to stop, and pushing for a sustained pause in the fighting.
The conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top.
But this is worse than bullshit, and the blood is on Biden's hands. Genocide Joe Biden has continued to give his full support to Israel, blocking any ceasefire resolutions at the UN, deploying the U.S. military to attack anti-Israel forces in the region, and shipping billions in weapons to Israel. Right now, Biden is trying to get $14.1 billion more in military aid for Israel passed through Congress. So this would be like Biden saying, you know, Hitler killing all those Jews, it's really over the top, but can I send you more gas for those gas chambers? And meanwhile, Israel is bombing aid convoys, destroying the warehouses that do exist with the meager food supplies. They're shooting into hospitals, killing journalists and medical workers, and the people of Gaza are starving, while the bombs continue to fall and the Palestinian people die. Almost 29,000 people have been killed, including more than 12,150 children, with thousands more missing and likely buried under rubble. So why is this all happening? Look, there's a lot of confusion about this. Some people argue it's racism or greedy politicians, but if you don't understand what's really driving this nightmare, you'll be led away from doing what's required to stop it. On his social media dispatch, Bob Avakian makes this plain.
Why is Biden and basically the entire government and ruling class of the U.S. supporting Israel in carrying out genocide against the Palestinian people before the whole world? Here is the answer to that crucial question. This is not because of the power of the Jewish lobby, or because of some ignorant, ridiculous, and outrageous notion that Jews are controlling everything. It is because Israel plays a special role as a heavily armed bastion of support for U.S. imperialism in a strategically important part of the world, the Middle East. And Israel has been a key force in the commission of atrocities which have helped to maintain the oppressive rule of U.S. imperialism in many other parts of the world. It's the system of capitalism imperialism that Biden serves. The system he has to serve. The system that anybody and everybody has to serve if they want to hold office, and especially high office like president, within this system. That is why Biden is doing what he's doing, what all these politicians are doing, above and beyond their more narrow personal interests. It's the system, this system of capitalism imperialism, that embodies and enforces white supremacy, patriarchal male supremacy, and other brutal oppression. This system, resting on ruthless, life-stealing exploitation of masses of people in this country and literally billions of people worldwide, including more than 150 million children, all enforced with massive violence and destruction of people and the environment, posing a very real threat to the future and the existence of humanity. This system that needs to be overthrown at the soonest possible time through an actual revolution.
You were just listening to Bob Avakian from Social Media Dispatches. If you are not following Bob Avakian on social media, giving live and direct leadership, then you are missing out. You can follow Bob Avakian on X and Bob Avakian Official on all other platforms. If you sign up on Substack, you can get the text of these dispatches. This is leadership being provided live, direct, what people need to understand about what's happening and what we need to do now. So spread the word, follow yourself, and argue with everyone you know that they need to tap in, they need to follow Bob Avakian on social media. It's something else.
It's really important what you're saying about the social media. Lately, I've been going to our YouTube channel, at YouTube at the Revcoms, and going to our Substack, and listening to these one after the other. And they are a coherent message for this time. What's the problem we face? What is U.S. imperialism doing? What's the solution? What time it is? And how we could really win. It's just an incredible body as a whole. So we want to move forward and finish up today's show with this. It's Black History Month, and there's a series on revcom.us called American Crimes, some of which we've turned into videos for this show, and we want to do one for Black History Month on a incident in U.S. history which was largely buried until the last decade or so. And we did one on this. That was produced by, written by David Zeiger, who has contributed American crime videos to the RNL show. So watch this.
Okay, here's a pop quiz. What was the site of the biggest race riot in the history of this country?
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
That's right, the great state of Oklahoma, home of lovable farmers and ranchers who just need to learn how to be friends and share all those wide open spaces. In the decades following the Civil War, Oklahoma was the destination for both white settlers and former slaves looking to build a new life. was also the final destination of the Trail of Tears, the forced march of the southeastern Native American tribes, but that's another American crime story. When Oklahoma became a state in 1907, the very first law they passed legalized and enforced racial segregation. After all, they had to make it a real American state. Tulsa, then, was a sleepy town of 10,000. But with the discovery of oil 3 years later, the population grew to over 100,000 in just 1 decade. Among those were thousands of black people looking for a better life and hoping to escape the worst of Jim Crow Mississippi, Georgia, and other states of the Old South. In 1921, Tulsa was strictly segregated. Black people could work in town, but all black residents were required to live and shop in the Greenwood district of northern Tulsa. Greenwood's segregated economy, self-contained and self-sufficient, was so successful that it became known nationally as the Black Wall Street. Black-owned grocery stores, banks, libraries, hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, and more lined Greenwood Avenue. But here's what happened on May 30th, 1921. Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old black shoe shiner working downtown, enters the elevator of the only building with a restroom that blacks can use in the area. Sarah Page, a white 17-year-old, is the elevator operator. When the door closes, Page cries out, and Rowland, who may have just tripped and stepped on her foot, runs off, knowing what can happen. Sure enough, he's alleged, without evidence, to have assaulted Page. He's arrested the next morning and held in a jail cell above City Hall. Then the headlines hit. The Tulsa Tribune declares "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator," and headlines an editorial, quote, "To lynch Negro tonight," end quote. Within an hour, a lynch mob in the hundreds descends on the courthouse. Word spreads throughout Greenwood that whites are storming the courthouse, and Rowland is in danger. At 9 p.m., a group of 25 armed black men, some World War I veterans, drive to the courthouse determined to stop the lynching. The local authorities refuse their offer to help, and they leave. But the heavily armed white mob is incensed. When a group of 75 black men return to the courthouse and are again turned away, a white man approaches an armed black Army veteran and demands he turn over his gun. A fight breaks out, and a gun goes off. Historian and author Scott Ellsworth wrote, "While the first shot fired at the courthouse may have been unintentional, those that followed were not. Almost immediately, members of the white mob, and possibly some law enforcement officers, opened fire on the African American men, who returned volleys of their own. The initial gunplay lasted only a few seconds, but when it was over, as many as a dozen men, both black and white, lay dead or wounded. Outnumbered more than 20 to 1, the black men began a retreating fight toward the African American district, with armed whites in close pursuit. They tried to kill all the black folks they could see," a survivor, George Monroe, recalled later. As many as 500 white men and boys are immediately sworn in as, quote, "special deputies," end quote, and told to, quote, "get a gun and get a nigger," end quote. Deputies pass out weapons from a sporting goods store across the street. White rioters begin firing on blacks and setting fire to black-owned homes and businesses late into the night. Then as dawn approaches, literally thousands of armed whites, some estimated as many as 10,000, gathered in 3 locations on the edges of Greenwood. A siren sounds at daybreak, and the mobs of white terrorists launch their invasion. These armed white mobs include over 150 Tulsa police. They set about systematically killing, looting, and burning the entire district of Greenwood, block by block. Armed whites break into black homes and businesses and force the people outside, where they are led away at gunpoint to internment centers set up by the authorities. Anyone who resists is shot. If guns are found inside, the occupant is shot. Homes and businesses are looted, then set on fire with torches and oil-soaked rags. House by house, block by block, Greenwood is demolished. Even airplanes are used to shoot black people from the air and drop kerosene bombs on buildings, setting them ablaze. Tremendously outnumbered, black Tulsans fight back. Riflemen take positions atop the belfry of a newly built church to try and halt the white invasion, but the church is burned to the ground. Deputized police and the National Guard units arrest 6,000 Greenwood residents. Black Tulsans don't go down without a fight, but they're outgunned and outnumbered. Survivors recounted black bodies loaded on trains and dumped off bridges into the Arkansas River, and, most frequently, tossed into mass graves. By noon on June 1st, these white mobs had murdered more than 300 black Tulsa residents. They had turned 40 square blocks of Greenwood into a scorched wasteland, including 1,256 homes destroyed, along with virtually every other structure, churches, schools, businesses, even a hospital and library. More than 10,000 residents were left homeless. Thousands of black Tulsans spent the winter living in tents. Many left for good, having had enough of Tulsa, Oklahoma. A grand jury investigation organized by Oklahoma's governor in the days after the massacre referred to the events in Tulsa as a, quote, Negro uprising, end quote, concluding, quote, the assembly was quiet until the arrival of armed Negroes, which precipitated and was the direct cause of the entire affair, end quote. But that ain't all, folks. The Tulsa race riot was erased from the state and country's history for 76 years. It wasn't until 1997 that a commission was established in Oklahoma to study the riot. And what did they find? Quote, not one of these criminal acts was then or ever has been prosecuted or punished by government at any level, municipal, county, state, or federal.
All right, Annie, that brings us to the end of this 183rd episode. It was great to have you here this week, and you were here last week without me.
Yeah, it was good to be here last week, and it was good to be here this week with you and with all of you. So follow this channel. Become a Patreon to support this show at patreon.com/the Revcoms. Make a donation regularly.
Yeah, and go to the top of our YouTube page, and you'll see 3 interviews that Santara Taylor and I did with Bob Avakian in the fall of 2022. These interviews are a must-see. They really capture the entire thing of what we're trying to do, the revolution we're leading, what its goal is, and most importantly, it gives you a way to experience Bob Avakian up close and personal and hardcore for revolution. And so with that, we're going to say goodnight, and we'll see you next week, Thursday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, Annie.
Good night.